12 years. 12 years of late dinners eaten alone, of smiling at charity galas while Victor whispered into his phone in another room, of signing documents she wasn't even supposed to read. Just initial, just agree, just trust him. And she had. God, how she had trusted him. Elena, Victor's voice cut through the stillness as he strode in, loosening his silk tie, his tailored suit still crisp despite the hour. He didn't look at her, not really. His eyes scanned the room, already moving on to the next meeting, the next deal, the next distraction. "You're home late," she said, her voice calm, measured, but beneath it something trembled. "Board ran long," he replied, heading straight for the whiskey cabinet. "Camila, my new assistant, messed up the Singapore projections. Had to fix it myself." The name slipped out so casually, like mentioning the weather, but Elena's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. Camila, again. The name had started appearing more often, on his calendar, in hushed calls, in the way he'd glance at his phone with a smile she hadn't seen in years. "She's young," Elena said, testing the waters. Victor chuckled, pouring himself a generous measure. "Sharp, ambitious, unlike half the people I pay 6 figures to stare at spreadsheets." There it was, the subtle dig, wrapped in praise, the unspoken comparison. Elena turned toward the window, her reflection ghostly in the rain-streaked glass. She saw a woman in an expensive silk robe, hair perfectly tied back, eyes hollowed by years of swallowing her worth. "You know," she said softly, "when we got married, you told me I was your secret weapon, that no one saw how you really built this empire, how I stayed up nights helping you draft contracts, how I calmed your investors when you lost your temper." Victor paused. For a second, she thought he might actually look at her, but he just took a sip, his back still turned. "That was a long time ago, Elena. Things change. You've got everything you could want. This house, security, freedom. What more do you need?" Her breath caught. Freedom, she had a gilded cage, not freedom. She had silence where there should have been partnership. She had loneliness dressed in couture. "I needed you," she whispered, so quietly she wasn't sure he heard. He didn't respond, just set his glass down and headed upstairs without another word, his footsteps echoing like a verdict. Elena stayed by the window long after the lights upstairs went out. The rain grew heavier. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked, marking time she'd never get back. She thought of the early days, Victor holding her hand under the table at investor dinners, whispering, "We're in this together." She'd believed him. She'd built her life around that promise. Now, standing alone in the heart of everything they'd supposedly built, she felt like a ghost in her own home. But ghosts don't bleed. And tonight, something inside her did. Not with tears, not with screams, but with a quiet, terrifying clarity. She wasn't just Victor Langford's wife. She was Elena Reyes, the woman who'd helped him rise. And if he thought she'd vanish quietly into the shadows while he paraded his mistress through the halls they'd once dreamed in together, he didn't know her at all. Outside, lightning split the sky. For the first time in years, Elena didn't flinch. She finished her wine, set the glass down with deliberate care, and walked out of the library not as a victim but as someone waking up. The storm had only just begun. Certo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a historia sem marcacos com o nome de cada tópico que for desenvolve. Mi conti sobrio tópico tu com dialogo como su fosso espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com vida moco. Com muitos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters when 3, Max. The Hillsbridge Mansion wasn't just a house. It was a monument, perched on a cliff overlooking the city. Its glass and steel curves gleamed like a crown under the morning sun. From the outside, it whispered power, perfection, legacy. But step inside, and the air changed. It grew still, cold. Beautiful, yes, but hollow, like a museum curated by someone who'd forgotten why they collected the pieces in the first place. Elena walked through the grand foyer every morning the same way, barefoot, robe cinched tight, coffee steaming in a hand-painted porcelain cup Victor had bought in Milan. For the woman who deserves only the finest. She'd smiled then. Now she barely tasted the coffee. She passed the marble staircase. The abstract sculpture's worth more than most people's homes. The floor-to-ceiling portrait of Victor accepting some award. Visionary of the decade. She wasn't in it. She never was. "Mrs. Langford," murmured Clara, the housekeeper, appearing like a shadow in the hallway. The florist delivered the weekly orchids. "They're in the solarium." "Thank you, Clara," Elena said softly, always polite, always composed. But as she entered the solarium, a glass room suspended over the cliff edge, filled with white orchids and morning light, her composure cracked, just a little. This room had been her sanctuary once. She'd designed it herself. Victor had called it her little greenhouse. As if it were a charming hobby, not the only space in this entire estate where she'd been allowed to imprint her soul. She ran her fingers over a petal, cool and velvety. Outside, the city sprawled below, alive with movement, ambition, connection. Inside, silence. Her phone buzzed on the wicker table. A notification: Victor Langford Group, Q3 earnings call, live. She tapped it without thinking. And there he was on screen, sharp in a navy suit, commanding the virtual room with that effortless arrogance that had once made her heart race. Investors leaned in as he spoke about strategic realignment and future-proof assets. Then, casually, he added, "None of this would be possible without the incredible team behind me, especially Camila Reyes, who's been instrumental in restructuring our Asia-Pacific portfolio." Camila Reyes, not even a different last name, just Reyes, like it meant nothing. Like Elena's name, her identity, was already being overwritten. Her breath hitched. She turned off the screen. Mrs. Langford, a young staff member, appeared at the door, holding a silver tray. "Mr. Langford called. He said he won't be home for dinner again. Something about a critical strategy session with Ms. Reyes." Elena didn't flinch. She simply nodded. "Thank you. You may go." The staff member hesitated. "He also said to tell you not to wait up, and that the charity gala next week, Ms. Reyes will be accompanying him as his +1. He hopes you understand." The words landed like shards of glass in her chest. Understand that after 12 years of standing beside him in silence, of smoothing his edges, of defending him when others called him ruthless, she was now an inconvenience to be managed, a footnote to be edited out. She walked to the edge of the solarium, pressing her palm against the cold glass. Below, the ocean crashed against the rocks, relentless, untamed. She used to love that sound. Now it felt like the only honest thing in her life. Later that evening, she stood in the master bedroom, staring at the walk-in closet filled with designer gowns she hadn't worn in years. Dresses bought for galas she no longer attended. Because Victor had started saying, "You don't need to come, darling. It's just business." But tonight, something shifted. She pulled out a deep emerald gown, the one she'd worn the night Victor proposed, under the stars on this very cliff. She remembered how he'd knelt, tears in his eyes, saying, "You're the mind behind my madness, Elena. Without you, I'm just noise." She traced the fabric, then slowly, deliberately, hung it back, but not before whispering to the empty room, "If I'm just noise to you now, then let me be the silence that drowns you out." She turned off the lights and walked downstairs, not to the library this time, but to the study, the one Victor always kept locked. Except tonight, the key was in his desk drawer, left there carelessly, like everything else he assumed she'd never question. Her hands shook as she turned the key. Inside, files, contracts, property deeds, and there, on top of the stack, a title document for the Hillsbridge mansion, registered solely under Elena Marie Reyes. Not Langford, not Ander, just her name. Her breath stopped. Victor had bought this house during their 3rd year of marriage, right after his first major acquisition. He'd been so proud. "Our legacy," he'd called it. But in his haste to close the deal, he'd used her premarital trust fund as collateral, and the deed had never been updated. He'd forgotten, or worse, he'd never thought it mattered, because in his world, her name was just decoration. But now it was a weapon. She sat in his leather chair, the city lights flickering below like distant warnings. For the first time in years, she didn't feel small in this house. She felt its weight, its power, its truth. This mansion wasn't his trophy. It was her prison. And prisons, she realized with a slow, burning calm, could be turned into fortresses. Outside, the wind howled. But inside, Elena finally heard her own voice again. Clear, sharp, and ready. She closed the drawer, locked it. She didn't call ahead, didn't announce herself. She simply walked through the revolving doors, past security who recognized her face but not her purpose, and took the private elevator to the 42nd floor. Victor's executive suite. The receptionist, a young woman with sharp eyes and sharper nails, blinked in surprise. Mrs. Langford, Mr. Langford isn't expecting. I'm not here to see him, Elena said, voice calm as still water. I'm here to meet Camila Reyes. A flicker of panic crossed the girl's face. I'm not sure she's available. Tell her Elena Langford is waiting. Or should I say, Elena Reyes, the name hung in the air like a challenge. Minutes later, a door opened down the hall, and there she was, Camila, young, maybe 28, dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to be, before Victor got his hands on her. Her hair was glossy, her makeup flawless, but her eyes were nervous, hungry, trying too hard to look like she belonged. She stopped a few feet away, arms crossed like armor. Mrs. Langford, to what do I owe the surprise? Elena didn't smile, didn't flinch. She stepped closer, just enough to lower her voice, but not enough to hide the steel beneath it. I wanted to see the woman my husband thinks is worth throwing away 12 years of marriage for. Camila's chin lifted. He didn't throw anything away. He just finally chose someone who sees him. Sees him, Elena let out a quiet laugh, dry, bitter. You see the empire, the cars, the power, but you don't see the man who lies to his wife, hides his phone, like it's evidence, and calls his mistress critical to strategy in earnings calls. Camila's cheeks flushed. You don't know what we have. I know exactly what you have, Elena said, stepping even closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that cut deeper than any shout. You have borrowed time, borrowed status, and soon, you'll have nothing but the echo of a man who used you to feel young again. For a heartbeat, Camila looked shaken, but then she straightened, summoning the bravado Victor must have found so intoxicating. At least he wants me, she said, voice trembling just slightly. When was the last time he even touched you? The question landed like a slap. Elena didn't look away, didn't blink, but inside, something cracked, just a little, because the truth was, it had been months, longer. She'd stopped counting after the last time he'd turned away in bed, muttering about stress, but she wouldn't give Camila the satisfaction of seeing it. Want isn't love, Elena said softly, and possession isn't partnership. You think you're stepping into a throne, you're stepping into a tomb. Victor doesn't build with people, he consumes them, and when you're no longer useful, he'll discard you like last season's tie. Camila opened her mouth to retort, but then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her expression shifted. A text from Victor. Meeting ran late. Don't wait for dinner. And cancel the spa tomorrow. I need you in Singapore. Elena saw it all in Camila's eyes, the flicker of disappointment, the quick cover-up, the practiced smile returning like a mask. You're already waiting for his scraps, Elena said, almost gently now. And you don't even realize you're starving. Camila's hands clenched. You think you're better than me, you stayed. You let him treat you like furniture. If you were so strong, you'd have left years ago. Elena held her gaze. Maybe I did stay too long, but I stayed because I believed in something real. You're chasing a reflection. She turned to leave but paused at the elevator. One more thing, she said without looking back. You're pregnant, aren't you? Camila froze. How did you? Your hands. You keep touching your stomach when you're nervous. And you've stopped wearing heels. Silence. Elena finally turned. Her eyes weren't cruel. They were sad. Don't make the mistake of thinking a child will anchor him, she said. Victor doesn't anchor. He drifts. And he always takes the lifeboat for himself. The elevator doors opened. Elena stepped inside. As they closed, she saw Camila standing there. Alone in the hallway, one hand resting protectively over her belly, the other gripping her phone like a lifeline to a sinking ship. Back in the car, Elena exhaled, long and slow. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel, not from anger, from grief. For the girl Camila was before Victor got to her. For the woman she herself had been before the silence ate her alive. But grief wouldn't save her now. Only clarity would. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she'd saved weeks ago. Ms. Delaney, it's Elena Reyes. I'm ready to move forward. Pause. Then about the mansion. Yes, Elena said, watching the Langford Tower shrink in her rearview mirror. And everything else. And then she saw it. A notification banner. Sliding in from the edge of the screen, Camila. I can't stop thinking about you. Last night was everything. And the baby. He's already so loved. Elena's breath stopped. Her fingers moved before her mind could catch up. Tapping the message, opening the thread. Dozens of messages spilled across the screen. Intimate, tender, cruel. I hate lying to her, but she's become so distant. She doesn't even look at me anymore. It's like living with a statue. Soon, my love. Soon we'll be free. Each word was a knife, but it was the next message that shattered her. A photo. Victor and Camila, wrapped in each other's arms on a balcony. Their balcony, the one off the master suite. The one where Elena had once stood with him, watching the sunrise after their 10th anniversary. In the photo, Camila's hand rested on her stomach. Victor was kissing her temple, eyes closed, smiling like a man who'd finally found peace. And then, ringing through the silent house, the shrill cry of a phone. Not hers, his, left charging on the desk. It rang again, and again. Caller ID Camila. Elena stared at it, heart hammering against her ribs. She shouldn't answer, but something primal, something raw and bleeding inside her, reached out and swiped green. Victor, Camila's voice, warm, intimate, laced with sleepiness, filled the room. I couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about what you said today, about naming him after your father. Silence stretched. Elena didn't speak, couldn't. Victor, Camila's voice shifted, uncertain now. Are you there? Elena swallowed. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper, but steady. He's not here. A sharp inhale, then silence. The kind of silence that screams. Mrs. Langford, Camila whispered, voice cracking. Yes, Elena said, standing now, walking to the window. Rain blurred the city below into streaks of light and shadow. Tell me, Camila, when you lie in my bed with my husband, do you ever wonder what I'm doing? Elena, I didn't know he'd left his phone. You didn't know? Elena let out a quiet, broken laugh. You've been planning our replacement for months. You've picked out names for his child while I still set a place for him at dinner, hoping tonight might be the night he remembers I exist. I never wanted to hurt you, Camila said quickly, too quickly. No, Elena said, voice sharpening. You just wanted what he offered. Power, security, the future, and you didn't care who you erased to get it. I love him, Camila insisted, desperation creeping in. Do you? Elena asked softly. Or do you love the idea of being chosen, of being seen? Because let me tell you, Victor doesn't see you. He sees a mirror, a younger version of himself. That's all he's ever loved. Another silence, longer this time. Then faintly he said you wouldn't fight, that you'd just let go. Elena closed her eyes. He always underestimated me. She ended the call. The tablet screen still glowed on the desk. She picked it up, scrolled further, found a calendar entry, private jet, Hillsbridge to Santorini, departure Friday 6 p.m. Just us. Forever begins. Friday, 3 days away, and beneath it, a note, pack light. She won't notice I'm gone. She, not Elena, not my wife, just she, a ghost, placeholder, Tears finally came. Not loud, not dramatic, but silent rivers down her cheeks as she sank into Victor's chair. She pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to push back the humiliation, the betrayal, the sheer invisibility of it all. But then a sound. Footsteps on the marble hallway. Her head snapped up. Victor stood in the doorway, briefcase in hand, tie loose, eyes narrowing as he saw her holding his tablet. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, voice cold. Elena didn't rise, didn't flinch. She simply held up the tablet, screen still open to the photo of him and Camila on their balcony. His face went pale. "You were going to leave," she said, voice eerily calm. "Take her to Santorini. Start your forever. And what about me? Was I supposed to just fade away like I never mattered?" Victor stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Elena, it's not what you think, isn't it?" She stood now, facing him fully. "You called me distant, cold, but you never asked why. You never stayed long enough to find out. I gave you everything," he snapped. "This house, security, a life most women dream of. And all I asked for was you," she whispered. "Just you. Not your money, not your name. You." He looked away. Guilt flickered, then hardened into defensiveness. People change. Feelings fade. It's not a crime. "No," she said, stepping closer. "But betrayal is. And you didn't just betray my trust, Victor. You betrayed the man you swore you'd be when you knelt on that cliff and promised to build a life with me. Not just a brand." He opened his mouth to argue, but she cut him off. "Friday," she said. "You're leaving Friday." He froze. "How did you?" "I know everything now," she said, her voice low, final. "And when you try to walk out that door, you'll find it locked. From the inside." She walked past him, toward the hallway. "Elena," he called after her, voice strained. "Don't do anything rash. You won't win this." She paused, turned back, eyes glistening but unbroken. "I'm not trying to win," she said. "I'm trying to survive." And with that, she left him standing in the study, alone with the ghost of the man he used to be and the woman he'd thrown away. Upstairs, she locked the bedroom door, sat on the edge of the bed he'd shared with another woman in his mind, if not yet in body. Her phone buzzed. A text from Victor: "We need to talk. Tonight. Don't make this harder than it has to be." She didn't reply. Instead, she dialed a number saved under a single name: Ms. Delaney, legal counsel. Elena, the voice on the other end, was crisp, calm. The kind of calm that came from years of watching empires crumble in conference rooms. "I'm ready," Elena said, fingers tracing the edge of a property deed. "I want full asset freeze on all joint accounts. I want forensic accounting on Langford Group's offshore holdings. And I want the mansion secured, legally, physically, irrevocably." Pause. "You understand, once we file, he'll retaliate. He'll go public. He'll drag your name through the mud. Let him," Elena said, voice low but steady. "Because when he does, I'll release the emails, the texts, the financial discrepancies, and the world will see who the real architect of his empire was and who the real fraud is." Another silence. Then, softer, and the baby Elena's breath hitched. Just once. "Camila's child isn't my concern, but Victor using that child as leverage. That is, I won't let him weaponize innocence the way he weaponized my silence." She hung up. Minutes later, a black town car pulled into the driveway. Not Victor's. Not a delivery. A woman in a charcoal suit stepped out. Tall, silver-haired, eyes like flint. Ms. Delaney. They met in the solarium, where the morning light filtered through the orchids like stained glass. "You've been quiet for 12 years, Ms. Delaney said, setting her briefcase down. "Why now?" Elena looked out at the city below. "Because silence isn't peace. It's surrender. And I'm done surrendering." Ms. Delaney opened her briefcase. "Good, because I've dug deeper. Victor's been funneling money through shell companies in the Caymans. One of them, Viridian Holdings, owns a luxury villa in Santorini, registered under Camila's maiden name." Elena turned slowly. "The escape plan. Exactly. But here's what he doesn't know. Ms. Delaney slid a document across the table. Your prenup has a morality clause. Infidelity, especially when it involves misuse of marital assets for a third party, voids his claim to all jointly acquired property after year 5. Elena's pulse quickened. Including the mansion, especially the mansion. It was purchased with your trust fund as collateral. Legally, it's yours. Always has been. A slow breath escaped Elena. Not relief, resolve. So if I act now, she said, before he leaves, I can lock him out. Permanently. You can, Ms. Delaney said. But be warned, he'll fight. He'll call you vindictive, cold, ungrateful. Elena's lips curved, not in a smile, but in something fiercer. Let him. I'd rather be called a monster than remain his ghost. That afternoon, while Victor was in a board meeting, Elena made 3 calls. First, to the head of security effective immediately, Victor Langford and Camila Reyes are to be denied entry to the Hillsbridge estate. No exceptions. Second, to the property registry, I need an emergency amendment to the deed. Remove all references to Victor Langford. Re-register solely under Elena Marie Reyes. Today. Third, to a private investigator, I need proof Camila is staying at the Azure Suites. And I need photos of Victor visiting her there. Tonight. By dusk, the mansion felt different. Not just quieter, but hers. Every room, every corridor, every window seemed to breathe with her intention. Then his car. She saw the headlights cut through the rain as Victor's Rolls pulled up the drive. He stepped out, umbrella in hand, expression tight with impatience. He walked to the front door, tried the handle, locked. He rang the bell. Once, twice, no answer. He called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. Frustration turned to fury. He pounded on the door. Elena, open this door right now. She stood just inside, unseen, listening to the man who once swore to protect her now screaming like a stranger denied entry to his own life. Finally, he stepped back, soaked, glaring up at the windows. You think this changes anything? He shouted into the rain. You think locking me out makes you powerful? You're just proving how broken you are. Elena didn't move, didn't speak, but inside something uncoiled. She wasn't broken. She was becoming. Later that night, the investigator sent the photos. Victor entering Camila's suite at the Azure, staying for 3 hours, leaving with a duffel bag. And in the morning, Elena received the final document, the updated deed. The Hillsbridge mansion, now legally, irrevocably hers. She walked through the empty halls, running her hand along the banister, the walls, the cold marble floors. No more waiting, no more hoping. She had been erased once. Now she would be the one who erased. And Friday would come. Elena didn't reply. She didn't need to. Downstairs, the house was silent. No staff bustling. No deliveries. Just the low hum of the security system, now armed not just against intruders, but against the man who once owned everything inside these walls. At precisely 3:17 p.m., a car appeared at the gate. Not Victor's Rolls. A sleek black sedan, unmarked, discreet. A woman stepped out, briefcase in hand, silver hair pulled into a severe bun. Victoria Delaney herself. Elena met her at the front door. You came in person, Elena said. I wanted to see it with my own eyes, Ms. Delaney replied, glancing past her into the grand foyer. The moment a woman stops asking for permission and starts claiming what's hers. They walked to the study, the same room where Elena had first uncovered the truth. Now it was transformed, legal binders stacked neatly, digital backups encrypted, property deeds displayed like trophies on the desk. Ms. Delaney set her briefcase down. I've reviewed everything. The morality clause holds. His use of marital funds to finance Camila's apartment, travel, even prenatal care. That's not just infidelity. It's financial dissipation. In court, it's catastrophic for him. Elena nodded, fingers tracing the edge of the updated mansion deed. He still thinks this is about pride, about hurting him. It's not, Ms. Delaney asked gently. No, Elena said, turning to face her. It's about survival. For years, I let him define my worth through his silence, his absences, his lies. But this house, this name, they were never his to give or take. They were mine all along. I just forgot how to say it. Ms. Delaney opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. Then say it now. This is the formal notice of separation. It includes the asset freeze, the deed reassignment, and a cease and desist barring him from entering the property. If he tries, he'll be arrested for trespassing. Elena took the envelope, felt heavier than paper, felt like freedom. He'll go to the press, Ms. Delaney warned. He'll spin this as you being unstable, jealous, vindictive. Let him, Elena said, voice quiet but unshakable. Because I have something he doesn't. What's that? The truth. And the documents to prove it. Just then, the security monitor on the desk flickered to life. A car approached the gate. Victor's rolls. Elena's breath stilled, but her hands didn't tremble. On screen, Victor stepped out, duffel bag in hand, wearing a crisp white shirt and that familiar look of entitled certainty. He pressed the intercom at the gate. Elena! His voice crackled through the speaker, calm at first. Open the gate. We're leaving in 2 hours. I need my passport. It's in the safe. Silence. He pressed again. Elena, don't be childish. This isn't a game. Still no response. Frustration edged into his voice. You think locking me out changes anything? I built this life. I own this house. From the study, Elena reached for the intercom button. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Actually, Victor, she said, clear and calm. You don't. A beat of silence. Then shock. Elena, is that you? Yes. And this is my house, not yours. Never was legally, and certainly not morally. You can't do this, he snapped, voice rising. I'll sue you. I'll drag you through every court in this state. You can try, she said. But before you do, ask yourself, do you really want the world to see the emails where you called me emotionally barren? Or the bank transfers to Camila's offshore account, or the fact that you planned to leave me with nothing while you started over in Santorini with my money? Silence. Thick, suffocating. Then, quietly, you wouldn't. I already did, she said. Your lawyers will receive the full disclosure package by midnight. Consider it my farewell gift. She released the button. On the monitor, Victor stood frozen in the rain, duffel bag at his feet, face pale. He looked up at the mansion, her mansion, as if seeing it for the first time. Not as his trophy, but as a fortress he could no longer breach. He turned and got back in his car. But before he drove off, he looked up one last time, at the window where Elena stood, watching. Their eyes met through the glass and rain. No words, no tears, just an ending. When the car disappeared down the hill, Ms. Delaney exhaled. It's done. Elena nodded, but she didn't smile, because she knew this wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. She walked to the fireplace, where a small box sat on the mantel. Inside, her wedding ring. She picked it up, cool metal against her skin. For a moment, she remembered the man who'd placed it there. Full of promises, eyes bright with love. That man was gone. And so was the woman who believed him. She dropped the ring into the fire. It didn't melt, but it glowed briefly before vanishing into ash. Outside, the storm broke. Rain poured in sheets, washing the driveway clean. Then her phone rang. Not a text, not a lawyer. A call. From Victor. She let it ring. Once, twice. On the third, she answered. Elena. His voice was strained, stripped of its usual polish. You've gone too far. She didn't speak, just listened to the tremor beneath his words, the first real crack in the armor. I tried to get into the office this morning, he continued, voice low and urgent. My access card didn't work. My assistant wouldn't look me in the eye. And then I saw it, your statement to the Financial Chronicle. You called me a financial predator. I quoted the forensic auditor's report, she said evenly. Word for word. You're destroying me, he whispered. No, Victor, she said, standing now, walking to the window. You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure the world sees the ruins." He was silent for a long moment. Then, softer Camila left me. Elena closed her eyes. She didn't gloat, didn't flinch, but she felt it, the shift, the first domino falling. "She found out about the offshore accounts," he said, voice hollow. "Said I was using her like I used you. Can you believe that after everything I gave her?" "You gave her lies," Elena said gently. "And borrowed time. That's not a gift. It's a trap." He exhaled sharply, like she'd struck him. "You think you've won. Don't you locked me out of the house, froze my accounts, turned my board against me. What's next, selling the mansion to fund your new life as a martyr?" "No," she said. "I'm keeping the mansion, and I'm keeping my name. That's all I ever wanted." "You'll regret this," he said, venom creeping back in. "I have friends in places you can't imagine. I'll bury you in lawsuits. You'll lose everything. You already took everything that mattered," she said, voice quiet but unbreakable. "My trust, my time, my belief that love could outlast ambition. You can't take what's already gone." She ended the call, but the storm he'd promised didn't wait. By evening, the headlines exploded. Langford empire crumbles as wife exposes financial misconduct. Billionaire Victor Langford accused of asset stripping, fraud. Mistress abandons Langford amid scandal. Elena watched it unfold from her study, screen after screen lighting up with her name. No longer Mrs. Langford, but Elena Reyes, architect of accountability. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Reporters, former colleagues, even old friends who'd vanished when Victor rose to power. But one call stopped her cold. It was Camila. Elena hesitated, then answered. "Why?" Camila's voice was raw, trembling. "Why did you release the emails about the baby, about me?" "I didn't," Elena said. "The press got them from Victor's legal team. They're trying to shift blame onto you." Silence, then a sob. "He told me he'd protect me, that we'd start over. But when the board called, he said I was a liability, like I was nothing." Elena closed her eyes. "I'm sorry, Camila." "Don't be sorry," Camila whispered. "Be careful. He's not done. He told me last night," he said. "If I go down, I'm taking her with me. She thinks she owns that house. She doesn't know what's buried in the foundation." Elena went very still. "What did he mean by that?" she asked. "I don't know," Camila said. "But he was smiling when he said it. And that smile, it scared me more than anything." The line went dead. Elena sat in the darkening room, heart pounding. Buried in the foundation. Was it a threat, a bluff, or something real? She walked to the safe in Victor's old study, the one he'd always kept locked. She'd cracked the code weeks ago, their wedding date. She opened it now. Inside, stock certificates, passports, a handgun, and a sealed envelope labeled "For Elena. If you ever truly look." Her hands shook as she opened it. Not a confession, not a threat, a deed to a second property hidden under a shell company. A warehouse downtown, purchased the same month he started seeing Camila, and scribbled in the margin, in Victor's handwriting, "Some secrets are worth more than money, and some wives are too blind to see them." Elena stared at the paper. He wasn't just hiding assets. He was hiding evidence. And if he thought she'd stop now, after everything, he didn't know her at all. Outside, thunder rolled. The game had changed. Rain slicked the pavement as she approached, the envelope clutched in her hand like a talisman. The deed listed a key code. She typed it into the pad beside the loading bay door. A click, a groan. The door slid open just enough for her to slip inside. Darkness swallowed her. She flicked on her phone's flashlight. Dust hung in the air, thick and still. Crates lined the walls, stamped with the Langford Group logo. But in the center of the room, something else. A desk, old, scarred, and on it a single file folder. Her name on the tab, Elena Reyes, confidential. She opened it. Not financial records, not contracts, photos, dozens of them. Her years ago, leaving meetings with investors Victor had deemed too volatile. Her at late-night strategy sessions, white bards covered in her handwriting. her signing documents while Victor slept off another night of drinking. Notes in his handwriting. Elena handled the Kensington deal, smoothed it over. No one suspects her involvement. She's the only one who sees the full picture. Keep her close. Keep her quiet. And then a recording device. She pressed play. Victor's voice, clear as ice. The board thinks I'm the genius. But if they knew Elena drafted the Langford acquisition framework, the one that made us billionaires, they'd realize I'm just the face. She's the mind. And minds like hers are dangerous if they ever decide to speak. Elena sank into the chair, trembling. He hadn't just used her, he'd feared her, and that fear had kept her silent for 12 years. Suddenly, a sound, metal scraping. She spun around. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate. Then a voice from the shadows. I knew you'd come. Victor stepped into the dim light, hands in his coat pockets, face gaunt, eyes burning with something between fury and admiration. You hid this here, she said, voice shaking but steady. Why, insurance, he said, walking closer. In case you ever got brave enough to dig. I wanted you to see it, to understand that everything you built, I let you build. I gave you space, purpose, and in return, you owed me loyalty. Loyalty, she laughed. A raw, broken sound. You called me emotionally barren in texts to your mistress. You planned to leave me with nothing, and you think that's loyalty. I gave you a life most women would kill for, he snapped, voice cracking. You had everything. I had a cage with a view. She shot back, standing now, facing him fully. You let me work in the shadows so no one would see how much you needed me. And when you got bored, you replaced me with someone younger, softer, someone who wouldn't challenge you. He flinched. You don't understand. Camila. She made me feel alive again. And I made you rich, she said, voice dropping to a whisper. But you couldn't love me for that. Could you, because my strength reminded you of your own weakness? He stared at her, jaw clenched. For the first time, she saw it, not just anger, but shame. You're going to release those photos, aren't you? He asked quietly. No, she said, because they're not proof of your betrayal. They're proof of mine, of how long I let you convince me I didn't deserve to be seen. She closed the folder, left it on the desk. Keep your secrets, Victor. Bury them deeper if you want. But the world already knows who you are. And soon, they'll know who I am. Not your wife, not your ghost, just Elena Reyes. She turned to leave. Elena, he called after her, voice strained. What do you want from me? She paused at the door, rain soaking her hair. I don't want anything from you, she said without looking back. That's the whole point. And with that, she walked out, into the storm, into the night, into a future he could no longer touch. Behind her, the warehouse door creaked shut. Her phone buzzed. Ms. Delaney. They're coming today, her lawyer said without greeting. Victor filed an emergency motion. Claims you illegally seized marital property and withheld critical documents. He's demanding immediate access to the mansion and the safe. Elena exhaled, watching her breath curl into the cold air. Let him come. He's not coming alone, Ms. Delaney added. He's bringing Camila. That gave her pause. Why? Says she's a material witness to your emotional instability. He's trying to paint you as unhinged, jealous, possessive, dangerous. Classic playbook. Elena's fingers tightened around the railing. Then let them see what unhinged looks like. She called security. Double the perimeter. No one enters, not even with a court order, without my direct authorization. And if Victor Langford shows up with anyone, record everything. By noon, the sky had cleared, but the air remained tense, charged like the moment before lightning strikes. At 1:47 p.m., a black SUV rolled up to the gate. Not Victor's, but him, stepping out in a tailored overcoat, jaw set, eyes sharp with calculated outrage. Beside him, Camila, visibly pregnant now, wrapped in a cream trench coat, one hand resting protectively on her belly, the other clutching a folder. They approached the intercom. Elena, Victor's voice came through, calm but edged with steel. Open the gate. We have a court-ordered inspection of the premises. Elena stood just inside the foyer, watching them on the monitor. She pressed the speaker button. There is no court order, she said evenly. Your motion was denied this morning. Judge Whitmore called your claim frivolous and retaliatory. You know that, Victor, so why are you really here? A beat of silence. Then Camila stepped forward, voice soft but trembling. Elena, please, I just want to talk. I'm not here for him. I swear. Elena studied her on the screen. The girl looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, shoulders slumped. Not the confident mistress anymore, just a woman caught in the wreckage. Against her better judgment, Elena unlocked the gate, but not the door. She met them on the front steps, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You have 5 minutes, she said. Camila glanced at Victor, then stepped forward alone. He told me to say you threatened him, that you stole his passport, his files, his future. But I saw the texts, Elena, the ones where he called me a temporary fix. He's using me to get to you. Then why are you here? Elena asked, voice low. Because I need your help, Camila whispered. He's cutting me off. No money, no support, and the baby, I have nowhere to go. Victor's voice cut in sharp. Don't listen to her, Elena. She's playing you. She's always been a manipulator. Camila turned on him, eyes blazing. I'm the manipulator. You promised me a life. You said we'd raise our son in that house, her house. And now you're telling your lawyers to claim I coerced you into the affair. Victor's face darkened. You're emotional, unstable. This is exactly why I... Enough, Elena said, stepping between them. She looked at Camila, really looked, saw the fear, the regret, the echo of her own younger self, trusting, hopeful, blind. Then she turned to Victor. You brought her here to make me look cruel, to show the world I turned away a pregnant woman. But you forgot one thing. What's that? He sneered. I'm not the villain in this story, she said, voice quiet but cutting. You are, and everyone's starting to see it. She turned back to Camila. There's a guest wing on the east side. It's empty. You can stay there for now. But you don't bring him in. Not ever. And if you're working with him behind my back, you're out before sunrise. Camila's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Victor stepped forward. You can't do this. She's my responsibility. No, Elena said, locking eyes with him. She's your consequence, and you don't get to hide from it anymore. She turned and walked back inside. As the door closed behind her, she heard Victor hiss, You'll regret this. But Camila didn't follow him. She stood on the steps, watching the mansion, Elena's mansion, as if seeing sanctuary for the first time. Inside, Elena leaned against the door, heart pounding. She hadn't forgiven Camila, but she refused to become Victor. And in that choice, she found something she thought she'd lost. Executives confirm Elena Reyes drafted core business strategy. Mistress seeks protection from Billionaire amid allegations of coercion. Elena sat in the solarium, reading the articles on her tablet, the morning light sharp against her face. She hadn't released the emails. She hadn't spoken to a single reporter. But someone had, and the dam had burst. Her phone rang. Ms. Delaney. They're turning on him, her lawyer said, voice tight with urgency. 3 board members resigned last night. The SEC just opened a formal investigation. And Victor, he's desperate. He called every major outlet this morning, spinning a story about you, stealing intellectual property, and manipulating his mistress. Elena set the tablet down. Let him talk. You don't understand, Ms. Delaney said. He's not just attacking your character. He's going after your credibility. He told the Chronicle you suffer from narcissistic delusions, and that the mansion seizure was a cry for attention from a woman who couldn't hold her husband's love. For the first time in weeks, Elena felt it, the old wound, raw and familiar. The fear that maybe, just maybe, the world would believe him. That they'd see her not as a woman reclaiming her life, but as a scorned wife lashing out. But then she remembered the warehouse, the photos, The recordings. The truth etched in Victor's own handwriting. "I'm not his audience anymore," she said quietly. That afternoon, a black town car pulled up. Not with lawyers, but with a woman in a sharp navy suit and silver-rimmed glasses. Diana Cho, senior editor at the Viridian Review, known for taking down titans. Elena met her at the terrace. "You didn't call me," Diana said, sipping tea Elena had offered. "But I came anyway." "Why?" "Because I've been tracking Victor Langford for years, and the moment you locked him out of that mansion, I knew you weren't just his wife. You were his reckoning." Elena looked out at the city. "I don't want a profile. I don't want pity." "I'm not offering either," Diana said. "I'm offering a platform. Tell your story your way, not as a victim, as the architect he tried to erase." Elena hesitated. "If I speak, he'll escalate." "He already has," Diana replied. "But truth is the one thing he can't litigate away." That night, Elena sat at her desk, a blank document glowing on her screen. She didn't write about betrayal. She didn't write about revenge. She wrote about silence, about how power doesn't always roar. It often whispers, "You're lucky to be here." About how love can become a cage when it's built on erasure. About how she helped build an empire and then vanished. Inside it, she titled it, "I Was Never Missing. I Was Hidden." She sent it to Diana at 3:17 a.m., the same time Victor had stood at her gate, demanding entry. By sunrise, it was published. By noon, it had gone viral. Victor called within the hour. His voice was ragged, stripped bare. "You ruined me." "No," Elena said, standing at the window watching the city awaken. "You ruined yourself. I just stopped pretending you were someone worth protecting." "You think this makes you noble," he spat. "You used my own life against me." "I used the truth," she said. "And you taught me long ago, truth is the only currency that can't be faked." He was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, Camila told them everything. About the offshore accounts, the fake invoices, the lies. "She's protecting her child," Elena said, "just like I'm protecting myself." "You'll never be free of me," he whispered. "Not really." "Yes, I will," she said, "because I've already let you go." She ended the call, and for the first time she believed it. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, golden and unrelenting. She found Camila on the small balcony off the guest suite, one hand resting on her swollen belly, the other clutching a cup of tea gone cold. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair loose and tangled. She looked younger than ever, fragile but no longer naive. "You read it, didn't you?" Elena asked softly, stepping onto the balcony. Camila nodded without turning. "Your essay?" "Yes." And a pause. Then, quietly, "You made me feel seen and ashamed, all at once." Elena leaned against the railing. The city spread out below them like a map of broken promises and second chances. "I didn't write it for you." "I know," Camila said, finally looking at her. "But it felt like you did." They stood in silence for a long moment, the wind carrying the distant hum of traffic, the faint cry of a gull. Then Camila spoke again, voice trembling. "He called me last night, said if I testify against him, he'll make sure I never see my child. That he'll claim I'm unfit, unstable, manipulative, just like he's saying about you." Elena turned to face her fully. "And what did you say?" "I told him I already gave my statement to the SEC." Camila's voice cracked. "That I signed everything, that I'm done being his secret." Elena studied her, the fear in her eyes, but also the resolve beneath it. "Why?" "Because I looked at my reflection this morning," Camila whispered, "and all I saw was you, 10 years from now, alone, erased. And I realized, I don't want my son to grow up thinking love means disappearing." Elena's throat tightened. She reached out, hesitated, then gently placed a hand over Camila's on her belly. Not as forgiveness, not as friendship, but as witness. "You're not me," Elena said, "and you don't have to follow my path. But you're right. Love shouldn't cost you your name." Camila's eyes filled with tears. I thought I was choosing something real, but he only wanted someone who wouldn't challenge him. Someone soft enough to mold. He always did, Elena said, voice low. That's why he couldn't keep me, and why he'll lose you, too. Just then, the front gate alarm chimed. Both women turned. On the security monitor in the hallway behind them, Victor stood alone at the gate. No car, no coat, just a man in a wrinkled shirt and hollow eyes. He wasn't demanding entry this time. He was just waiting. Elena's pulse quickened, but she didn't move. Camila's breath hitched. He's here for me. No, Elena said. He's here because he's running out of places to go. She walked to the intercom in the hall, Camila following slowly behind. Elena. Victor's voice came through, raw, stripped of all pretense. Please, I just want to talk to her. To Camila. I'm not here to fight. I swear. Elena glanced at Camila, who shook her head fiercely. Don't let him in. Elena pressed the speaker. She doesn't want to see you, Victor. She's carrying my child. He shouted, voice breaking. I have a right. You lost that right, Elena said calmly. The moment you treated her like a replacement instead of a person. I made a mistake, he cried. But I love her. I love our baby. Camila stepped forward, voice shaking but clear. You don't love me, Victor. You love the idea of starting over, of being forgiven without earning it. But I'm not your redemption arc. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, Camila, please. She took a deep breath. Go home, Victor, or wherever it is you go now, because this isn't your home anymore. It never was. She turned off the intercom. Outside, Victor stood for a long time, shoulders slumped, head bowed. Then, slowly, he turned and walked away, down the winding hill alone, a man stripped of everything but his regrets. Inside, Camila sank onto the bench, tears streaming down her face. Elena sat beside her, not speaking, just being there. After a while, Camila whispered, What do I do now? Elena looked out at the horizon, where the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in gold and violet. You build something real, she said, not on someone else's foundation, on your own. He's done something reckless, she said without preamble. Victor filed a countersuit, not just against you, against the SEC, the board, even Camila. He's claiming you orchestrated the entire affair, that you planted evidence, manipulated his mistress, and stole proprietary intellectual property to destroy him out of jealousy. Elena stood in the study, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the floor. He's desperate. He's dangerous, Ms. Delaney corrected. And he's not bluffing. He's subpoenaed your personal devices, your emails, even your therapist's notes from 5 years ago. He's trying to paint you as mentally unstable. A woman so obsessed with control she fabricated a betrayal to justify seizing his assets. A cold knot formed in Elena's stomach. Not fear, clarity. He thinks if he drags my name through enough mud, she said quietly, the truth won't matter. Exactly, Ms. Delaney replied. But there's more. He's also filed an emergency motion to freeze your accounts, claiming you're liquidating marital assets by re-registering the mansion solely under your name. Elena let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. He's using the very fraud he committed to accuse me of theft. Worse, Ms. Delaney said. He's leaked a doctored recording to the Financial Post. It's you, allegedly, telling Camila, once he's ruined, I'll have everything. It's fake, Elena, but it sounds real enough to sway public opinion. Elena closed her eyes. She could already see the headline, Langford Wife's Secret Plot Exposed. She walked to the window, watching the city lights begin to flicker on below. For a moment, the old fear crept in, the one that whispered, they'll believe him. They always believe the man with the empire. But then she remembered the warehouse, the photos, the truth etched in Victor's own hand. No, she said, voice firming. He wants a war of narratives, fine. But I won't fight in his shadows anymore. What are you going to do? Ms. Delaney asked. I'm going to give them the one thing he can't fake. Elena said. The original Langford acquisition framework, the one I wrote. The one he signed as his own. It's time the world sees whose mind built his empire. You still have it, in a vault, digitally time-stamped, watermarked, and backed up in 3 countries. Pause. Then, slowly, that's nuclear, Elena. He started the fire, she said. I'm just showing everyone who lit the match. That evening, as rain began to fall again, Elena sat at her desk and opened a secure cloud folder labeled Phoenix. Inside every document, every email, every line of code, every strategy memo she'd ever written for Langford Group. Each one bearing her initials in the metadata, her handwriting in the margins, her voice in the logic. She attached a letter to those who wonder who I am not the woman he erased. I am the woman who built what he claimed. And I am done being silent. She hit send to Ms. Delaney, to Diana Cho, to the SEC, to every major financial outlet. Then she walked to the East Wing and knocked on Camila's door. Camila opened it, eyes wide. I saw the news alert. You released everything. I did, Elena said. But I need you to know, this isn't about destroying him. It's about reclaiming what was mine. And if it hurts him, that's the consequence of his choices, not my vengeance. Camila nodded slowly. He called me again, said if I don't recant my statement, he'll sue for full custody the moment the baby is born. Elena's jaw tightened. He can't do that. Not with the evidence you've provided. He doesn't care about evidence, Camila whispered. He cares about control, and he's running out of ways to get it. Elena stepped closer. Then we take away his last weapon. How? By making sure the world knows exactly what kind of man he is. Not just to me, but to you, to your child. Camila's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared. So was I, Elena said softly, until I realized the only thing worse than facing him is letting him win by my silence. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, 2 women stood in the quiet aftermath of a decision that would change everything. She found herself in the library, where it had all begun. Rain tapped against the windows, soft and insistent. She sat in the same armchair where she'd first read Victor's messages to Camila, where the world had cracked open and never sealed again. Her phone lay silent on the table. No calls, no alerts. The storm had gone quiet, on the outside at least, but inside her it raged. She poured a glass of wine she didn't drink and stared into the fire she hadn't lit. Her reflection in the dark window was sharp. Strong jaw, tired eyes, hair loose for once. She looked like someone who'd survived. But did she feel like someone who deserved to a memory surfaced? Unbidden. 12 years ago, a small apartment above a bookstore. Rain falling just like this. Victor on one knee, ring in hand, voice trembling with sincerity. You're the only person who sees the whole picture, Elena. Not just the deals, the people, the future. I don't want to build this alone. I want to build it with you. She'd believed him, not because he was perfect, but because he'd seen her. And in a world that told women to shrink, to smile, to wait, the man who said, I need your mind, felt like salvation. But somewhere along the way, need became convenience. Partnership became possession. And you became she. A tear slipped down her cheek. Quiet, unexpected. She wasn't crying for Victor. She was crying for the woman who'd loved him enough to disappear. Footsteps echoed softly in the hall. Camila appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a robe, one hand resting on her belly. She didn't speak at first, just watched Elena with eyes that understood too much. You're not sleeping either, she said gently. Elena wiped her cheek. I keep wondering if I've become what he accused me of. Cold, calculating, ruthless. Camila stepped inside, sitting across from her. You're not ruthless. You're awake. That doesn't feel like enough. Elena whispered. I spent years believing love meant sacrifice. Now I've taken everything back, and I still feel empty. Because it's not about the mansion, Camila said, or the money, or even the truth. It's about whether you still believe in yourself. Elena looked at her, surprised. You sound like you've been thinking about this. I have, Camila admitted. Every night, I lie here wondering if I'll be enough for my child, if I'll repeat my mother's mistakes, if I'll let someone make me small again. She placed a hand over her stomach. But then I remember, my son will never hear me say, I'm sorry for taking up space, because I won't. Elena's breath caught. When did you get so wise? Camila gave a small, sad smile. When I stopped waiting for someone else to give me permission to exist. Silence settled between them, warm despite the chill. Then Elena spoke, voice barely above a whisper. What if I don't know who I am without him? You never were without him, Camila said. You were just hidden behind his shadow. But the woman who wrote those strategies, who faced him at the gate, who let a stranger into her home out of compassion, that woman was always there. You just forgot to look. Elena closed her eyes. And for the first time, she didn't see the wife, the ghost, the victim. She saw Elena Reyes, brilliant, wounded, unbroken. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle. The first hint of dawn touched the horizon. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? That after all this, I'll still be alone. Camila reached across the space between them and took her hand. You're not alone, and you won't be. Elena held her gaze, and in that moment, something shifted. Not just between them, but within her. She wasn't fighting for revenge. She was fighting for the right to be whole. And wholeness, she realized, didn't require an audience. It only required her. As the sun rose, painting the library in gold, Elena stood and walked to the window. She didn't look back at the past. She almost said no, almost hung up. But something in his voice, the rawness, the absence of performance, made her pause. 1 hour, she said. You come alone. No lawyers, no cameras, and you don't step inside. We talk at the gate. I'll be there. At precisely 10 o'clock a.m., he arrived on foot, wearing a simple gray coat, no tie, hair uncombed. He looked older, 10 years older in 10 weeks. The arrogance that once clung to him like cologne was gone, replaced by a hollowed-out weariness. Elena stood just inside the gate, arms crossed, face unreadable. He didn't approach, just stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. You released everything, he said. I did. And the board, they voted to remove me. Permanently. I heard. He looked down, then back at her. Camila won't take my calls. My lawyers say I'm facing criminal charges. My name? It's mud. Elena didn't flinch. You did that to yourself, Victor. Not me. I know, he said, voice cracking. But I need you to believe me when I say, I never meant for it to go this far. Didn't you? She asked softly. Because you planned a life with her in my house. You used my money to buy her silence. You called me emotionally barren, while you whispered, forever to her. That wasn't an accident, Victor. That was a choice. He swallowed hard. I was lost. I felt invisible in my own life. And she made me feel seen again. She saw the version of you that you wanted her to see, Elena said, just like I did once. But love isn't about being seen. It's about being known, fully, honestly, and you never let anyone truly know you, not even yourself. He stared at her, eyes glistening. Do you hate me? No, she said, and it surprised even her. I pity you, because you had everything, real love, real partnership, real legacy, and you threw it away for a reflection. He turned slightly, gazing up at the mansion. The home they'd once dreamed of filling with laughter, with children, with years. Now it stood as a monument not to their love, but to his betrayal. I came to ask for forgiveness, he said quietly. Elena shook her head. You don't get to ask for that. Forgiveness isn't a transaction, Victor. It's not something you earn with a plea. It's something that happens, if it happens, when the person you hurt no longer needs your apology to be whole. He looked at her then, really looked as if seeing her for the first time in years. You're already whole, aren't you? Yes, she said. I am. He nodded slowly, as if accepting a truth he could no longer deny. Then I just came to say goodbye. Elena didn't move, didn't soften, But she didn't harden either. "Goodbye, Victor." He turned and walked away. Slowly, shoulders slumped, a man stripped of everything but the weight of his choices. Elena watched until he disappeared around the bend. Then she turned back toward the house. But before she could take a step, her phone buzzed. A text from Camila. "He just called me. Said he's leaving the city. Asked me to tell you. He's sorry." Elena stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, "I hope he finds peace. But I won't wait for it." She slipped the phone into her pocket and walked back inside. Not as a woman, she had spent days in the study with architects, lawyers, and a quiet determination that surprised even her. Today was the day she made it official. At noon, a courier arrived with a single envelope, thick, cream-colored, sealed with red wax. Inside, the final legal documents re-registering the property under a new name. Not Langford, not even Reyes alone. The Elena Reyes Foundation for Women's Autonomy. She walked through the halls one last time as a private residence. The marble floors, the imported chandeliers, the portraits of Victor's hollow victories, all would remain, but their meaning would change. In the library, Camila waited, hands resting on her belly, eyes bright with quiet anticipation. "You're really doing it," she said. "I am," Elena replied, holding up the deed. "This house won't be a trophy. It'll be a refuge, a place where women who've been erased by love, by power, by silence, can remember their names." Camila smiled faintly. "He'll hate it." "Let him," Elena said. "His opinion doesn't live here anymore." She walked to the front entrance, where a small team of workers waited. With her nod, they began removing the brass plaque beside the door, "Langford Residence," and replacing it with a new one, forged in brushed steel, "The Reyes House." But that wasn't all. Upstairs, in Victor's old study, Elena opened the safe one last time. She took out every document bearing his name, contracts, awards, even the framed Visionary of the Decade certificate, and placed them in a fireproof box. Then she carried it to the courtyard. There, she lit a small, controlled fire in the stone pit Victor had installed for entertaining investors. Camila watched from the terrace, silent. Elena didn't burn the papers in rage. She did it with ceremony. One by one, she fed them into the flames. The merger agreements, the press clippings, the signed photos with world leaders, all bearing his name, none bearing the truth. As the fire consumed them, she pulled out her phone and dialed the property registry. "This is Elena Reyes," she said, voice clear and calm. "I'm filing an official request to expunge all public records linking Victor Langford to the Hillsbridge estate. From this day forward, he is to be listed as having no ownership, no residency, and no historical association with this property." She paused, watching the last page curl into ash. "And remove his name from the deed entirely. Not as co-owner, not as former spouse. Just erase it." When she hung up, Camila joined her by the fire. "Does it feel like victory?" she asked. Elena looked at the embers glowing in the afternoon light. "No, feels like freedom." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elena stood alone on the terrace. The city glittered below, indifferent to the quiet revolution that had taken place on this hill. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ms. Delaney. "It's done. Legally, publicly, irrevocably. The mansion is yours. Only yours." She didn't reply. She just slipped the phone into her pocket and walked back inside. In the foyer, she paused beneath the new plaque. The Reyes house. Not a monument to marriage. Not a trophy of betrayal. A declaration. She ran her fingers over the letters. Cool, solid, real. Somewhere in the city, Victor Langford was starting over in a rented apartment. His name stripped from headlines, his empire reduced to whispers. He would rebuild, perhaps, but he would never again walk through these doors. Never again claim what was never truly his. And Elena, she wasn't waiting for him to fall. She was building something that would stand long after his name was forgotten. Inside, the house was quiet, but for the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. Felt like peace. She turned off the lights, one by one, until only the moonlight remained, soft, silver, and hers. The past was ash. The future was unwritten. A soft knock came at the door. "Come in," she said. A young woman stepped inside, early 20s, eyes wide with nervous hope, clutching a worn tote bag. Her name was Maya. She'd called the foundation 2 weeks ago, voice trembling, saying only my husband took my passport. He says no one will believe me if I leave. Elena had sent a car that night. Now, Maya stood just inside the doorway, hesitant. I didn't know it would be so beautiful here. Elena smiled gently. "It's yours now, too." She gestured to the sofa. "Sit. You're safe." Maya sank down, tears welling. "I thought I'd end up in a shelter. Not this." "This isn't just a shelter," Elena said, sitting across from her. "It's a restart. Legal aid, financial literacy, therapy, housing support. We help women rebuild, not just escape." Maya looked around, then whispered, "How did you know how to do this?" Elena paused. The truth hovered between them, raw, real, but not hers to weaponize. "I was where you are," she said simply, "trapped in a life that looked perfect from the outside. But inside, I was disappearing." Maya nodded, wiping her eyes. "He told me I'd be nothing without him, that I'd fail if I tried to stand on my own." "He was afraid," Elena said softly, "not of losing you, but of you realizing you never needed him to begin with." Just then, Camila appeared in the doorway, holding a tray with 2 cups of tea. Her belly was round now, her steps slower, but her presence steady. "Mind if I join?" she asked. "Please," Elena said. Camila set the tray down and sat beside Maya. "I used to think love meant staying," she said, handing her a cup. "But real love doesn't ask you to vanish." Maya looked between them. 2 women who'd walked through fire and emerged not broken, but forged. "How do I start?" she asked. Elena leaned forward. "First, you say your name out loud, and mean it." "I'm Maya Chun," she said, voice stronger now. "And you're not alone," Camila added. Later that afternoon, as Elena walked the garden path with Camila, the air warm with blossoms and birdsong, Camila spoke quietly. "You gave her what no one gave. Us." Elena stopped beneath a flowering magnolia. "I couldn't undo what happened to me, but I could make sure it didn't happen to her." Camila placed a hand on her belly. "He kicks when I read your essays, you know, like he's listening." Elena smiled faintly. "Then tell him the truth, that his mother was brave, that his world will be kinder because she chose herself." They sat on a stone bench, silence wrapping around them like a shared breath. Then Camila said, "Victor's lawyers contacted me again. They're offering a settlement if I sign a non-disclosure agreement." Elena turned to her. "And I told them no," Camila said, chin lifting. "My son will grow up knowing his mother didn't trade her truth for money." Elena reached over and squeezed her hand. "You're going to be an incredible mother." Camila's eyes glistened. "I'm scared I'll get it wrong." "We all are," Elena said. "But you won't raise him in silence. And that's already everything." As dusk fell, lights flickered on inside the Reyes house. One in the counseling room, one in the library, one in the kitchen where a volunteer prepared dinner for 3 new arrivals. Elena watched from the terrace, arms crossed, heart full in a way she hadn't known was possible. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice. It was legacy. And for the first time, she wasn't building it for someone else. She was building it for every woman who'd ever been told she was too much or not enough. Elena heard the news from Ms. Delaney over tea in the solarium, now filled with women's voices instead of silence. "He's living in a 1-bedroom in Queens," her lawyer said, stirring honey into her cup. "Sells consulting hours to mid-tier firms. Pays rent late. Got evicted once." Elena didn't react at first. She watched a sparrow land on the railing, pecking at a crumb left by one of the residents. "Is he okay?" she asked finally. Ms. Delaney gave her a knowing look. "Physically, yes. Spiritually, I doubt it. He tried to call the foundation last week." said he wanted to make amends. I told him we don't accept donations from men who built empires on erasure. Elena almost smiled. Almost. That evening, as rain began to fall again, gentler now, like a memory, Elena sat in the library, reviewing grant applications for the Foundation's new financial independence program. The fire crackled low in the hearth, casting long shadows across the walls where Victor's awards once hung. Now they held framed letters from women who'd rebuilt their lives within these walls. A knock came at the door. Camila stood there, holding a newborn wrapped in a soft blue blanket. Her son, Leo, slept peacefully against her chest, tiny fingers curled around her thumb. "He wouldn't settle," she whispered. "I thought maybe a walk in the quiet would help." "Come in," Elena said, closing her laptop. Camila sank into the armchair across from her, adjusting the blanket with practiced care. "He has Victor's eyes," she said softly, "but I hope he has your strength." Elena looked at the baby, so small, so new, and felt something shift deep inside her. Not jealousy, not bitterness, just clarity. "He'll never know his father the way Victor knew his own," Camila continued, "because I won't let him inherit that hunger, the kind that consumes everything it touches." "You're protecting him," Elena said, "not punishing him. There's a difference." Camila nodded. "I named him Leo Reyes, not Langford, not after his father. After my grandfather, the man who taught me that dignity isn't given. It's claimed." Elena reached out, gently brushing the baby's cheek with her fingertip. He stirred but didn't wake. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Then another knock, not at the door, at the front gate. Security footage flickered to life on the tablet beside Elena's chair. And there he was, Victor, thinner, older, hair grayer, dressed in a cheap coat, shoulders hunched against the rain. He wasn't demanding entry, wasn't shouting, just standing there, hands in his pockets, staring up at the house like it was a ghost he couldn't outrun. Elena's breath caught. Camila saw the screen. "Should I go?" "No," Elena said. "This is mine to face." She walked to the intercom alone. For a long moment, she didn't speak, just watched him on the monitor. This man who once owned boardrooms, who commanded armies of lawyers, who believed the world bent to his will. Now, he looked like a man who'd forgotten how to ask for anything but mercy. "Elena," he said when she opened the line, voice rough, barely audible over the rain. "I know I have no right, but I heard about the baby, Leo. I wanted to see him, even from the gate." She didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "You don't get to be a father by showing up when it's convenient, Victor. You earn it by showing up when it's hard. And you haven't done that. Not for Camila, not for your son, not even for yourself." He lowered his head. "I know. Then why are you here?" He looked up, eyes glistening. "Not with manipulation, but with something raw. Because I keep thinking, if I'd chosen differently, if I'd seen you, really seen you, I wouldn't be standing in the rain, begging for scraps of a life I threw away." Elena closed her eyes. She could end this now, shut the gate, walk away, and part of her wanted to. But another part, the part that had built a sanctuary from ruins, knew that true power wasn't in exclusion. It was in choice. "You can't come in," she said, "but I'll bring him to the terrace. You can see him from the gate. 1 minute. No words, no promises. Just look." Victor nodded, tears mixing with rain on his cheeks. "Thank you." Minutes later, Elena stood on the covered terrace with Camila and Leo. Victor remained at the gate, 20 yards away, rain soaking his coat. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched his son sleep in the arms of the woman he'd wronged, and the woman he'd abandoned. When the minute passed, Elena turned and walked back inside without a word. Behind her, Victor stood a little longer, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the mist. Inside, Camila held Leo close. "Do you think he'll come back?" "No," Elena said. "But if he does, he'll find a door that only opens if he's changed." She looked at the baby, then at Camila. And if he hasn't, Camila asked. Then he'll keep walking in the rain, Elena said softly. And we'll keep building in the light. Outside, the storm passed. Inside, a new life breathed, safe, seen, and fiercely loved. And Elena Reyes finally understood the past couldn't be undone. But the future, the station hummed with life. Commuters rushing, tourists gawking, children chasing pigeons near the Whispering Gallery. She wore no heels, no designer coat, just dark jeans, a soft wool sweater, and her hair loose around her shoulders. No one recognized her, and for the first time in years, she liked it that way. She stopped at a newsstand, glancing at the magazines. Her face hadn't been on a cover in months. The world had moved on. Good. As she turned to leave, she saw him. Across the concourse, near the oyster bar entrance. Victor. He stood alone, holding a paper cup of coffee, staring at the celestial ceiling as if searching for answers in the stars painted overhead. He looked older, leaner, quieter. His coat was worn at the cuffs. His posture lacked the old arrogance. He looked ordinary. Her breath caught, but she didn't look away. And then, as if sensing her gaze, he turned. Their eyes met across the crowd. No anger, no accusation, no performance. Just two people who had shared a lifetime, now strangers in a public place. He didn't approach, neither did she, but after a long moment, he gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. She returned it. No words were spoken. None were needed. In that silent exchange, everything passed between them: regret, acknowledgement, the ghost of what was, and the quiet acceptance of what could never be again. A train announcement echoed overhead. The crowd shifted, and just like that, he was gone, swallowed by the current of commuters heading downtown. Elena stood still for a long time, heart steady, breath even. She hadn't expected to feel anything, but she did, not pain, not longing, but something softer. Closure. Later that evening, back at the Reyes house, she found Camila on the terrace, Leo asleep in her arms, wrapped in a knitted blanket the color of dawn. "You're quiet," Camila said, not looking up. "I saw him today," Elena said, joining her at the railing. Camila went very still. "Victor, yes. Did you speak?" "No. We just looked at each other." Camila exhaled slowly. And I realized I don't hate him anymore," Elena said softly. "Not because he deserves forgiveness, but because I deserve peace." Camila nodded, eyes on her son's face. "He sent a letter last week. To Leo. Just a note, really. Said he hopes he grows up kind. That he's sorry he won't be there to teach him how." Elena didn't ask to see it. Didn't need to. "Do you think he's changed?" Camila asked after a while. "I don't know," Elena said. "And honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. His journey is his. Ours is ours." She looked out at the city, lights flickering like distant promises. The mansion behind them was no longer a symbol of loss, but of rebirth. Women laughed in the kitchen. A guitar played softly in the library. Life, real and messy and beautiful, thrived where silence once reigned. Camila shifted Leo gently in her arms. "He'll never understand what you gave us." "He doesn't have to," Elena said. "We do." They stood in comfortable silence as the stars emerged one by one above the skyline. No grand confrontation, no dramatic reckoning. Just two women, a child, and the quiet certainty that they had chosen themselves, and in doing so, had built something that would outlast every lie, every betrayal, every name that had ever tried to erase them. And in that moment, under a sky full of stars, inside, the old ballroom, once used for Victor's galas, now hosted a financial literacy workshop. A young woman who'd fled an abusive marriage just 3 months prior stood at the front, teaching others how to open a bank account in their own name. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steady. Elena watched from the doorway, heart full. Later, in the library, now lined with books by women economists, poets, survivors, Camila sat cross-legged on the rug, Leo beside her, stacking blocks into wobbly towers. At 3 years old, he had Camila's warmth and a quiet intensity that reminded Elena of herself. He asked about you today, Camila said without looking up. Elena knelt beside them. Oh, Leo turned, eyes wide. Mama said you built this house. I helped, Elena said gently, but it was built by many women, including her. Leo considered this, then held out a blue block. You build with me, she took it. I'd be honored. As they built a crooked castle together, Camila spoke softly. He sent another letter. On Leo's birthday, just a card this time. No excuses. No, I'm sorry. Just, I hope you're happy. Elena placed a red block on top. And are you? Camila looked at her son. Then at the sunlit room filled with women healing, learning, laughing. More than I ever thought possible. That evening, as golden light spilled through the windows, Elena stood alone on the terrace. The same spot where she'd once watched Victor's car disappear down the hill. Now, the view was different. Not of loss, but of legacy. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ms. Delaney, SEC closed the Langford case today. Final ruling, Victor barred from executive roles in public companies for 10 years. Fines paid in full. He's done. Elena read it, then slipped the phone into her pocket. No triumph, no bitterness, just finality. She walked back inside, through halls that echoed with voices instead of silence. In the kitchen, two residents prepared dinner together, arguing playfully over the spice level of the curry. In the study, a woman practiced her testimony for an upcoming custody hearing, her voice stronger with every sentence. This was her empire now, not built on deception but on truth, not on possession but on permission to be seen, to speak, to stand. Later, as she turned off the lights one by one, she paused in the foyer beneath the plaque, the Reyes house. She traced the letters with her fingertips, not with pride, but with peace. The title had once screamed betrayal. Billionaire, he betrayed his wife with Mistress. His wife seized mansion, erased both names. But the truth was quieter. She hadn't seized the mansion out of vengeance. She'd reclaimed it as an act of self-resurrection. And in erasing their names, not just his, but the false identity she'd worn as Mrs. Langford, she hadn't destroyed the past. She'd made space for the future. Now, as moonlight pooled on the marble floor, Elena Reyes understood the deepest truth of all real wealth isn't in mansions or millions. It's in the courage to walk away from a life that no longer fits, and the grace to build something true from the